Motherhood is almost always described in the same way, as a miracle of life, unconditional love, the highest form of female purpose. This image feels so natural, so self-evident, that it's rarely questioned. Not only cinema, but society as a whole, culture, politics, even the language we use when talking about women and family, has spent decades repeating the same formula. Motherhood as meaning, motherhood as fulfillment, motherhood as a reward. And the more often this idea is repeated, the harder it becomes to imagine that this experience might have other sides.
I'm one of those people that's not supposed to be a mom.
It's like she's his only girl. Like I just no longer exist. I'm just a fucking piece of meat.
I'm not a mom. I'm not. This isn't supposed to be what it's like. This isn't it. This can't be it.
The ability to carry a child, to create life, is often described as the one thing only women can do, something fundamentally inaccessible to men. And that is precisely why this aspect of the female body and female experience has for centuries inspired admiration, fear, and an urge to control. As Joseph Campbell writes in Goddesses, Mysteries of the Feminine Divine, in the art of the early Paleolithic period, woman is depicted nude, as in the well-known Paleolithic Venuses. The magic is in her body itself. It excites the male. It is the reservoir of human life. Women's magic is natural and primordial. Man, by contrast, is always shown in a role, performing a function, doing something. From modern reinterpretations of Frankenstein, when a man plays God by trying to conquer death, and in doing so appropriates the act of creation itself, to contemporary technologies in which scientists work on artificial wombs and robotic incubators, culture, science, and politics have repeatedly returned to the same impulse, to move the creation of life outside the female body. And against this backdrop, motherhood continues to be romanticized. It is sacralized, stripped of exhaustion, of physical and psychological cost. Women are encouraged to see it only as a blessing, even when it becomes a source of constant stress and loss of self. But in recent years, cinema has slowly begun to challenge these outdated ideas. In 2025 alone, 2 films were released that openly confront the dark side of motherhood: Die My Love and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. These stories move beyond the idealized image of the mother as a symbol of self-sacrifice and unconditional love, instead portraying motherhood as a complex, draining, and often painful experience. Hi everyone, my name is Alona Shilova and you're watching Femme Fatale's Heels channel, where we talk about women, film, and women in film. And in this video I will mainly explore 2 films, Die My Love and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. I want to analyze how contemporary cinema portrays motherhood not as an idealized myth, but as a real complex experience, and how these films depict exhaustion, anxiety, frustration, and the sense of losing oneself that many mothers face. I also want to take a closer look on why 2025 has been called the year of mothers in cinema, and what this trend says about the way women's experiences are represented on screen. So while you can see a spoiler warning, I wanted to say that I also have a Patreon. That's where I share videos earlier in longer or original cuts and without YouTube's restrictions. Right now, working from Ukraine is difficult, but I'm committed to continuing this channel and to creating exclusive content there. If you want to support my work and help me keep these videos coming, Patreon is the best way to do that. I also want to say this up front, I don't have personal experience with motherhood. That's why in this video I'm not speaking from a position of knowing how hard it is. I can only approach this topic analytically, by examining films, related materials, and sharing my observations and reflections on how modern cinema represents motherhood. And it's very important for me to hear from you as well, especially if you do have experience with motherhood. If you'd like to share your story, please do so in the comments. I genuinely believe that your perspectives can deepen this discussion and help illuminate aspects of motherhood that don't always make it onto the screen. By the end of 2025, an increasing number of English-language media outlets began discussing the phenomenon of so-called mothers on the edge in cinema. Major publications identified this trend as one of the defining cinematic themes of the year. For example, Harper's Bazaar declared that 2025 was the year of movies about mothers on the edge. Vanity Fair analyzed how mothers on the brink became the main characters of 2025. Glamour asked why we can't look away from moms melting down. And LA highlighted fall releases that capture how weird and chaotic motherhood really is. Most often these articles focus on the films If I Had Legs I'd Kick You and Die My Love, sometimes also mentioning Hamnet, One Battle After Another, and the series All Her Fault. The theme resonates deeply not only in terms of rethinking women's experience on screen, but also within the context of the awards season, from the Golden Globes and BAFTAs to the Critics' Choice Awards, which traditionally lead into the Oscars. The teams behind If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, One Battle After Another, and Hamnet regularly left these ceremonies with the gold statuettes. So when Jessie, Buckley, and Rose Byrne received Oscar nominations for Best Actress, it came as little surprise. But before moving on to a deep analysis of Die My Love and If I Had Legs I'd Kick You, the two most discussed films of the past year in terms of their portrayal of motherhood, I want to briefly examine other films and series that also engage with this theme. One Battle After Another has emerged as one of the clear favorites of this award season. The film has already collected major prizes at the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards and received 13 Oscars nominations, including Best Supporting Actress for Teyana Taylor, whose role directly engages with the theme of motherhood. In the film, Taylor's character, Perfidia Beverly Hills, is part of a radical group fighting white supremacism in the United States. Perfidia is presented as a kind of femme fatale, sexually liberated, blunt, and apologetically using her sexuality for her own ends. Despite critical acclaim and awards recognition, parts of the Black community criticized Taylor for taking on the role, and Paul Thomas Anderson for sexualized and exploitative portrayal of Black women in the film. To be honest, I can admit that I'm definitely not the right person to give any comments on this situation. Instead, I will leave links down below in the description of the video from Black creators on YouTube, film critics, and authors in general, whose videos I've watched, because since I'm not part of the community, again, I'm a Ukrainian woman from predominantly white country, so I'm definitely not the one who should speak up on this topic, but instead, if you're interested, I recommend to check out these materials that I will link down below. Notably, Perfidia appears only in the first third of the film. After killing a police officer, she is forced into hiding. During this period, she gives birth to a daughter and begins experiencing postpartum depression. While her partner Bob, Leonardo DiCaprio, longs for a quiet family life, Perfidia feels frustrated and even becomes jealous of her own child.
And now he just gets to fucking walk around and just swooning all fucking day. It's like she's his only girl. Like I just no longer exist. I'm just a fucking piece of meat. And sometimes I feel crazy because I'm just like, am I weird for being jealous of my baby? I don't fucking feel seen. I don't feel loved. I feel fucking ugly. My nipples hurt. I can barely fucking feel.
This brief episode clearly illustrates symptoms of postpartum depression, emotional detachment, apathy, and difficulty bonding with both partner and child.
We're family now, right? You don't have to do this anymore.
You realize I put myself first, right? And that's what you're scared of.
We have her now. You do get that, right?
I put myself first and I reject your lack of originality.
Ultimately, Perfidia flees to Mexico and disappears from the screen. Only in the film's finale does her daughter receive a letter from her mother asking for another chance at a relationship. For both audiences and critics, Hamnet, directed by Chloe Zhao, the second woman in history to win an Oscar for Best Director, became one of the defining films of 2025. Based on Maggie O'Farrell's novel of the same name, the film transports viewers to 1580s England during an outbreak of the Black Death. The story centers on a tragic event in William Shakespeare's family, the death of his only son, the 11-year-old Hamnet. In the wake of this loss, Shakespeare goes to write Hamlet. The film portrays the lives of Shakespeare, Paul Mescal, and his wife, Agnes, Jessie Buckley, focusing on the parents' inner worlds as they process grief. Agnes finds out that motherhood puts her uncomfortably in touch with the void. During her second labor, when she has twins Hamnet and Judith, she has dark premonitions of loss. She isn't just teetering on the edge of the abyss, she dips a full toe in, writes Megan O'Connell for Harper's Bazaar. Notably, Jessie Buckley learned she was pregnant herself during the second week of filming. According to O'Connell, this knowledge makes watching her performance even more emotionally resonant and intimate. However, the author also notes that even Buckley's layered performance cannot escape the fact that the death of a child is impossible to surpass in terms of dramatic weight. There's a reason why children don't die in films, and if they do, it happens at the end. Even Maggie O'Farrell's Hamnet was written out of chronological order. Maternal grief is such a rich, unexplored subject. I wanted more of her story, meaning Agnes, not his, meaning Shakespeare. Thematically similar articles also frequently mention The Testament of Anne Lee, directed by Mona Fastwold. The musical biopic tells the story of Anne Lee, an 18th century English woman who became the founder of a religious community. A central theme of the film is Anne's experience of grief following the early deaths of all 4 of her children. For her performance, Amanda Seyfried received nominations at both the Golden Globes and the Gotham Awards. The series All Her Fault, based on Andreas Mar's novel of the same name, follows the kidnapping of a child from wealthy family and explores the intense social pressure mothers face even in the most vulnerable moments of their lives. This series also received 2 Golden Globe nominations for Best Miniseries and Best Actress for Sarah Snook. Taken together, these films and series suggest a clear shift in contemporary cinema. Stories about mothers are no longer confined to the emergence or due to background motivation for male characters. Motherhood instead has become a central narrative lens, one that allows filmmakers to explore grief, rage, exhaustion, ambivalence, and loss of identity. So I think that the growing visibility of these stories reflects not just a cinematic trend, but a broader cultural readiness to finally acknowledge motherhood as lived, complicated experience, rather than a secret ideal. However, the defining films about motherhood in 2025 remain Die My Love and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. These 2 works sit at the center of ongoing debates about how Hollywood is beginning to rethink and reframe the complex experience of motherhood. Although Die My Love did not generate the same award season momentum as If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, the film drew critical attention as early as it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival. At the time, Jennifer Lawrence was widely tipped for a Best Actress win, though the award ultimately went to French actress Nadia Meliti for Little Sister. Directed by Lynn Ramsey, the film is an adaptation of the novel of the same name and also marks Ramsey's first feature in 8 years. Notably, Ramsey has already explored deeply unsettling stories about motherhood in her film We Need to Talk About Kevin, which follows a mother trying to cope with her son's aggression and violence, with devastating consequences. In Die My Love, however, Ramsey shifts her focus. The story follows Grace, a young mother who moves with her partner, Jackson, from New York City to an isolated rural area after the birth of their child. Over time, her emotional state deteriorates, and she begins to lose her grip on reality, battling inner demons, fear, and the suffocating pressure of being both a mother and a woman. This psychological unraveling leads to erratic behavior and growing tension in her relationships with those around her. I was really looking forward to this film, even though it didn't get a theatrical release in Ukraine, but the trailers and critical reviews all pointed to it being a very powerful work. And honestly, what really stands out in this film is Jennifer Lawrence's performance. She masterfully captures the mix of tension and chaos, and throughout the movie you truly believe she is a woman desperately trying to hold on onto the fragments of her identity. However, and this is painful for me to say, Die My Love comes across as too chaotic and somewhat incoherent as a film. In my opinion, the main issue is that very little actually happens in terms of plot. Now, I don't have anything against so-called contemplative cinema, where the value of the viewing experience lies in immersion and sensation, rather than dynamic action or dramatic plot twists. But here it's important to remember that the main anchor for the audience is grace. As all the film's descriptions note, this was supposed to be a story about postpartum depression. And while I don't have first-hand experience of that, and therefore can't fully judge how realistically it's portrayed, I can still analyze the story and the film as a creative expression. Almost every scene contains an emotional breakdown, which we experience through Grace. She's constantly on the edge, crawling, smashing glass, playfully running at the baby with a knife. You can't look away from her thanks to Lauren's performance, but from the perspective of the story structure, this approach works against the film. Usually stories about psychological unraveling and gradual loss of the self build tension progressively. The characters' actions grow increasingly alarming, and we see their control slipping with each scene. In Die My Love, however, Grace is in this heightened state almost constantly. Personally, I felt like every scene is trying to be the dramatic moment that everyone will remember. But when nearly the entire film is made up of such moments, the tension eventually disappears, and it starts to feel exhausting rather than gripping. Jennifer got in touch with me out of the blue, we'd never met, and asked if she could send me a copy of Harvey's novel. It's a beautiful piece of writing, but I wasn't sure how could I adapt it. It's quite surrealist, and you don't know what's real and what's not, told Ramsey in the interview. But it seems to me that a similar situation unfolded here with The Nightbitch, which we discussed in our video about motherhood in body horror films. This is also a story about a woman losing herself through motherhood. And like the book, The Nightbitch contains many powerful monologues and inner thoughts. However, translating all of this into film proved almost impossible, and both The Nightbitch and Die My Love ended up falling into the same trap. Interestingly, the director Lynn Ramsey has stated in interviews that the film is not meant to be a story about postpartum depression. This whole postpartum thing is just bullshit. It's not about that. It's about a relationship breaking down. It's about love breaking down and sex breaking down after having a baby. And it's also about a creative block. Again, it's an interesting perspective and a topic worth exploring. But if Die My Love was meant to be a film about how relationships change after having a child, unfortunately it doesn't quite succeed. The film does show how Grace lacks attention and intimacy from her husband. Because of this, she even begins to imagine him having affairs with other women. However, this theme is never fully developed, appearing only through their arguments. On top of that, Grace herself has an affair with a married man, but this subplot is handled very inconsistently. At first, it seems like this man exists only in her imagination, but then she actually meets him in a parking lot with his family, and afterwards his character simply disappears. Creative frustration is also an important part of Grace's story. She is a writer, but after having a child, she cannot write, and this creative stagnation contributes to her emotional state. Again, though these experiences are only hinted at through brief dialogue, there is no deep exploration of development of these issues.
How's your book going, by the way?
Fantastic, thank you.
Your great American novel.
The main character is about to batter her husband to death with a hammer.
Sounds like shit.
Well, you can't read, so...
Maybe if I spend a little less time in my pants, more time writing, Maybe I'd write something. Maybe.
My hands are down my pants because you put your dick everywhere except there, asshole!
So in the end, it seems to me that there is a gap between the director's intentions and what the film actually builds. The movie declares themes of tension in relationships, intimacy, and creative identity, but does not develop them into a coherent narrative, leaving the viewer with a sense of emotional chaos without a clear center. At the same time, the film deserves praise for its beautiful visuals, striking musical score, and intimate scenes that feel realistic and sensual while still conveying the characters' interactions. There are strong performances not only from Lawrence but also from Pattinson, who plays a confused husband who wants to help his wife but doesn't know how.
I'm sorry.
I also really enjoyed Sissy Spacek as Pattinson's character Mother. Her role is relatively small, but her presence on screen is magnetic, and she is one of the few who genuinely supports Grace.
We came to be and we ran amok. May we live long and die out.
Yes. May we live long and die out.
She is trying to be visible. She's trying to say, I mean, Jackson just doesn't know what to do with her in the end. I think it's the Sissy Spacek character, Pam, who sees her the most clearly.
The film is also rich in symbolism, particularly through animalistic imagery. This is also reinforced by sound design. We frequently hear rats rustling in the attic, cats playing in the grass, buzzing flies, galloping horses, and barking dogs. I used the book as a bit of jumping off point. This isn't a literal translation at all, but there was something so feral, unapologetic, and animalistic about Grace being stuck in this house, like she's this beast, like there is something dangerous about her. It kind of came from that. In the first line of the film, she is like, "We need a cat." And of course, he brings a dog home, or recall Jennifer Lawrence. So the film is full of subtext and definitely isn't a traditional fast-paced story. Yet, even after watching it, I was left with the feeling that I didn't fully grasp what the film was trying to say. The final scene where Grace walks naked into a burning forest is powerful and beautiful, but it's just one symbolic moment among many others.
And then I had my baby and just thought completely differently about the ending and just what would be a good ending for her. Because we had so many different conversations before we started shooting, when we were in the edit. And then, of course, there's the statistic, which is the #1 cause of death in new moms is suicide. And then I got plunged into really bad postpartum, which was just weird because I didn't have postpartum with my first pregnancy. So when I was doing this movie, I was like, I guessed it would be like this. And then I had really bad postpartum, and then I watched it. And watching it that time while I was actually going through it was really, really indescribable. I mean, I wanted to hug Lynn. I wanted to strangle Lynn. I just she did something that's really, really hard. It's really hard when somebody's going through really bad depression or postpartum. Any of these things are very isolating and they're really hard to describe, especially through dialogue or cinematically.
In the end, Die My Love comes across as a film with enormous emotional and artistic potential, but one that never fully dives deep into a coherent statement. The movie captivates within individual scenes, performances, and its atmosphere, yet there isn't a strong narrative thread connecting these fragments. Instead of delivering a story about transformation, loss, or rethinking of motherhood, relationships, and self, the film leaves the viewer alone with a sense of chaos and ambiguity. Beautiful, emotionally exhausting, but ultimately without a clear answer about what the cry at its heart truly represents.
You mentioned it's about postpartum. I know Lynn has been she talks about that it's not exactly about postpartum for her.
Yeah.
But for you, what was your way into Grace and what she was going through?
I went back and forth. I mean, I think it matters if it matters to you. I think what's great about this movie is the space that it allows for you to project kind of your experience. And even myself in doing the movie, I had different moments of it where it was like, okay, this is from postpartum. This is from, the way that our relationship has changed since having a baby and being parents, and the inequality that has arrived in our relationship, and the captivity to maybe this is something that she's always struggled with, and I think the truth is it doesn't matter. It's just, I think postpartum was an engine for this rich and deep character study on these extremely interesting characters going through something really extraordinary.
Yeah. Like perhaps you have some abandonment issues, which makes it hard for you to safely attach to people. Your husband, to your son.
I don't have a problem attaching to my son. He's perfect. It's everything else that's fucked.
However, the film that managed to convey all these feelings successfully is If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which for me was genuinely a pleasant surprise. The film tells the story of Linda, a mother and psychotherapist who is trying to keep control over her life while caring for her seriously ill child. At the same time, her professional role, marriage, and own mental balance gradually start to unravel. It's interesting that the inspiration for the script came from director Mary Bronstein's own experience. The idea originated while she was staying in a motel and caring for her sick daughter.
The story started on the bathroom floor of a really shitty hotel room in San Diego, California, where I was roommates with my daughter for 8 months while she was having treatment out there that we couldn't get in New York for an illness that she was going through. I didn't do the things that Linda does in the film to escape. A lot of that is fantasy fulfillment, but the story quite literally, and the writing of the script started in that bathroom. It started with me feeling a type of existential dread that I couldn't name. I couldn't put my finger on. And I'd be drinking disgusting, cheap wine and just eating terribly and not sleeping and really feeling like I was disappearing into this situation that I was in, that I was disappearing, when this was over, because of course it's going to be over at some point, but when you're in a situation that's that stressful, it feels like there never was anything before it, and there never is going to be anything after it. And that's the feeling that I wanted to capture with this script.
I wanted to express a specific feeling of being a woman, yelling into the ether with rage, one trying to carry on with a feeling that the universe is against her. There is a tradition of films about women coming undone, but most of them are written and directed by men. At the beginning of the film, we see a situation familiar to many mothers. Linda, brilliantly played by Rose Breen, runs her own psychotherapy practice while also managing household chores and caring for her daughter. Her child is sick, and Linda monitors her weight to ensure she can be fed normally, rather than through a feeding tube. Her husband is away, he is a pilot or a sailor, honestly I still don't know, and the leak in the house floods everything, forcing Linda and her daughter to move to a motel until their repairs are completed. On the surface, these are everyday tasks: childcare, home problems, a husband who doesn't share responsibility. But in the film, these circumstances act as a catalyst for Linda's gradual breakdown, turning ordinary life into intense psychological pressure.
The center of the film, I really feel like, is an existential terror. And that's a terror that's like inside of yourself. So it's not like a guy running down the hallway with a knife. It's inside yourself. There's something inside of her that she is so desperately trying to escape from, and you can't do it. It's gonna get you.
It was a very simple sort of thing she showed me. It was just like a schedule for the day of her daughter's requirements at that time, and it just brought home how heartbreaking that is. I felt a visceral response to this experience. Of course, I had already, but it's just seeing actual old papers or a journal. There's a vulnerability to it. We reached and we spoke to a lot of parents and mothers who have children with special needs. That was fascinating because there was such a spectrum and variety of what that looked like and how it played out in their lives and marriages. We spoke to a therapist. We did a lot of fun research, really digging in, recalled Rose Breen. Essentially, the film can be described as one big pulsating state of chaos and stress that's suffocating Rose, who has to manage everything on her own.
What Dr. Spring thinks is best, then we have to listen
There
to
is
Dr.
no
Spring.
we, though. It's just me. It's not fair. I'm telling you.
Fair? Listen, I'm working, all right? I'm dealing with a lot of assholes. You have no idea. And I cannot do anything about what's going on there from here. We need to be a team. You have to go there today and check in and let them know that this whole
I know. You know, the problem with that logic, though, is that I'm not a housewife. I work too.
Doctors constantly pressure her, reminding her that the child isn't gaining enough weight, and force Linda to attend a support group, which rather than helping only worsens her state.
You keep telling us that it isn't our fault.
Yeah.
But it is. No. It's our fault. It isn't fair, but it is our fault. I mean, that's how I see it. That's it. That's what this whole thing is our fault. No one tries hard if they have a safety net. Nobody. Okay, and you should know that, Dr. Spring. I'm going to be here for the rest of my life pouring shit down that tube every night until I die.
The house repairs drag on, and eventually the contractor simply disappears, abandoning their work. At the same time, Linda has to organize her and daughter's life in a motel with unwelcoming staff. The only small ray of support comes from James, but Linda struggles to build trust with him due to her exhaustion and irritation. At work, a client leaves her own infant with Linda, adding another layer of despair and helplessness that mothers often experience.
It's fine. It's more common than you think. Woman tries to run away from all the responsibilities, everybody gets all upset, and they come back with their tails between their legs.
Linda also turns up to her therapist for advice, but he is essentially unable to help. All these elements build through the film, turning seemingly ordinary problems into a large nightmare. Every scene is filled with tension and uncertainty, and as a viewer you feel that trembling, fatigue, and emotional strain alongside her. The film masterfully conveys feelings of isolation, helplessness, and exhaustion, while also resonating deeply, making the audience empathize, worry, and experience the full weight of a mother's struggle. And this, for example, is what I felt missing in Die My Love, that sense of growing tension that hits even harder with each scene. In the film's climax, Linda finally breaks. She removes her daughter's feeding tube herself, her husband arrives and blames Linda for losing control, and the woman herself attempts to end her life by surrendering to the sea. In the final scenes, Linda lies on the wet sand as her daughter approaches her. This is the first time the audience sees the girl's face, a choice I really appreciated. Through the film, the child's face is never shown. The camera focuses on hands, the back, or small details. This creates a sense of stress and tension experienced by Linda, rather than directing the viewer's anger or frustration towards the child as a separate cause of the problems. That's why the moment the child's face is finally revealed is incredibly emotional. A daughter coming forward to show her love for her mother.
The idea of being a mother is that you've sacrificed something to bring this other being into the world, that you've made them in your body. Now they're a person. And so everything continues to be for them. And it's a sacrifice of, I can't speak for all mothers, but for a lot of women, of personhood, of personal identity, you become somebody's mom, but you weren't always somebody's mom. And so how to make that balance of being a person that you identify as yourself, but also being a good enough mother.
So, in conclusion, I think I can say that, in my opinion, contemporary cinema is gradually but confidently breaking down old stereotypes about motherhood. It shows that being a mother is not just a miracle and joy, but also exhausting work, psychological pressure, constant responsibility, and a struggle with one's own fears and societal expectations. All the films and series I've mentioned today allow viewers to empathize with mothers, to feel their fatigue, irritation, and anxiety, while also showing that support, understanding, and even self-discovery are possible in difficult situations. Although none of these films offer simple answers, they all remind us of one important truth. The experience of motherhood is multifaceted and deserves attention, empathy, and understanding. By portraying it without embellishment, contemporary cinema helps us talk about mothers' real lives, with exhaustion and anxiety, with moments of loneliness and invisible labor, but also with deep love, care, and a strength that often goes unnoticed. Thank you for watching this video. Please give it a like, subscribe, write a comment. If you're still here, I really appreciate your time and attention. Also, a special thanks to my patrons for supporting this channel and this work, and special thanks for Scene Frog and Melu Scream. I really see all of your support, from comments to patron subscriptions, and I just wanted to let you know that I'm truly grateful for it. And see you in the next videos. Bye bye.